All right, let's go ahead and finish this off. Sad Night, Part 2. Aztecs were bumping their canoes into the side of the causeway, climbing out and jumping onto the bridge. Thousands of warriors attacked the Spaniards and pushed them forward. Oh, dang, look, all the Aztecs are pushing off all the Spanish. They're like, whoa! Those Spaniards at the front of the line shouted for the soldiers to bring up the bridge, but the men at the end of the line were fighting and shoving and pushing and pulling. Woo! In the bitter struggle, both Aztecs and Spaniards fell off the edge of the causeway into the water, but the Aztecs were not weighed down with the gold and could swim. Oh no! So many men died and sank into the water where the bridge should have been, that the last Spaniards crossed over the gap on drowned bodies. The Aztecs did not follow them to shore. They took the Spanish wounded and captured to sacrifice to their gods. Oh, dang, the Spanish are going to get sacrificed to these Aztec gods. Oh, look at that. That's kind of ironic. They pretended to be gods only to be sacrificed to the gods. Full circle. Full circle. Near the bloodied causeway, Cortez sat in the rain under a cypress tree and wept. He had lost most of his men and his horses, and the gold Spaniards who wrote down the story of the night and Spain's terrible losses called the escape from Tenochtitlan the Sad Night, or La Noche Triste. Wah, wah, wah. Sucks to be you, dog. But many Aztec eagle knights and many jaguar knights also died that night. That's a lot of night. The Aztecs did not know that this was the last battle they would win. A year later, Cortez and his men marched back with more cannons and more men with the help of the Tlaxcalan people. They had built a small fleet of ships, which were then taken apart and carried piece by piece over the mountains. What? They carried boats by pieces? The ships were reassembled at the lake shore. This time the Spaniards fought the Aztecs to the ground and conquered the city. They came back and went pop, pop, pow, pow, boom, boom on Tenochtitlan. The ancient stone pyramids and temples were torn down. Spaniards forced Aztec slaves to build churches and public buildings on the top of the ruins using the same stones. Some of those buildings are still there today. Tenochtitlan is now Mexico City, the largest city in the world. It is no longer an island. The lakes and the streets of water have all dried up. A few years ago, workers digging in the city for a new subway found 3 bars of gold. Experts studied them and saw traces of melted down jewelry from Moctezuma's treasure that was lost in the lake. Almost 500 years after the sad night, the president of Mexico and the ambassador from Spain met as friends in the Great Museum in Mexico City to inspect the gold bars. Over the building in the heart of the city waves the flag of Mexico. The people who give their allegiance to this flag speak Spanish, the language of Cortés. Yet on that flag is this design: an eagle perched on a cactus on a rock with a snake in its beak. More about the Aztecs and Cortez, because I know you're dying to learn more, guys. Tenochtitlan was founded around 1345. By 1519, it had grown into a city larger than any in Europe. 3 great causeways connected the island to the mainland. A few large roadways crisscrossed the city, but most of the 200,000 inhabitants traveled by boat through the maze-like network of canals. Many of the city's 60,000 homes were built on chinampas, garden areas in the lake formed from layers of matted vegetation and mud, anchored at the edges with willow trees. In the main plaza, 2 sacred chapels atop a huge pyramid base formed the great temple to the rain and war gods shown above. Nearby was the round temple of Quetzalcoatl, whom the Aztecs expected to return to establish his kingdom. By the reign of Moctezuma II from 1502 to 1520, about 15 million people in central and southern Mexico paid tribute to the Aztecs. Hernan Cortes claimed all of Mexico for the King of Spain, a Christian. He destroyed the temples and idols because they were used in rites of human sacrifice. Cortes received Doña Marina, a captive princess who spoke several languages, as a gift. Her skill as an interpreter and her advice on Indian matters helped him conquer the Aztecs. Cortes came to Mexico against the orders of his Spanish commander, who had decided someone else should lead this important expedition. By burning his ships, Cortes committed himself and his forces to a successful invasion, since there was now no escape. Cortes entered Tenochtitlan in 1519 with 400 men. He returned in 1521 with 900 Spanish soldiers and thousands of Indian allies. In early battles, Aztec warriors fought until they had conquered their opponents, but in later wars, both sides fought only until an agreed-upon number of prisoners had been taken alive. Aztecs believed that the sun's spirit needed human blood for strength to return from the underworld each dawn, and they took prisoners to offer sacrificial victims. Cortes won Mexico for Spain by means of brilliant tactics and superior weapons. Clubs with obsidian, lava glass, those are the maquito blades, bows and arrows and spears launched from the handheld wooden throwers called atalast, I don't know how to pronounce that, were no match for Spanish cannons. Steel swords, muskets, crossbows, guns, horses, attack dogs, and finally ships. Moctezuma's nephew, Cuauhtemoc, succeeded him as emperor. Cuauhtemoc was captured and hanged by Cortes. Moctezuma's body was thrown into the lake. Cortes's remains lie in Mexico City. The Aztecs used several calendar systems: a 260-day sacred calendar, a 365-day solar calendar, and a 52-year calendar bundle. The sacred calendar was divided into 13 cycles of 20 days. The 20 different names for the days rotated until the calendar returned to the starting point. One alligator, a child born on a particular day, received that day's name and cycle number and might be called 2 deer, 5 lizard, 9 alligator, 13 reed. Just as there was a name and number for each day, each year was given a number from 1 to 13, and one of the names of 4 sacred calendar days: reed, flint, knife, house, or rabbit. At the end of the 52-year bundle, or era, the priest would hold a new fire ceremony. If the gods were pleased, the universe would continue, and the solar and secular calendars began again. Quetzalcoatl's return was predicted for the year 1 reed, which would occur only once in a bundle. The last known new fire ceremony was held in our year 1507, 2 reed. If you count each subsequent year down and toward the right of this page, you will see that the year 1 reed was 1519. On our calendar, the year Cortes arrived in Mexico. Much of what we know about Aztec calendars is recorded on a famous 12-ton stone calendar disc in a museum in Mexico City. Other sources of Aztec symbols are the fold-out books called codices, because the Spaniards destroyed almost all the books they found. No pre-1519 Aztec codex still exists. So here's a symbol for the new fire ceremony. We have the Aztec calendar here, and this folded piece of paper, this is the Mexican codice. All right, well, colorín colorado, este cuento se ha acabado. Later.